Well, here to celebrate a very special anniversary is Litecoin Foundation's Charlie Lee chatting fireside with Miss Teen Crypto. David Burkett will join shortly to shed some light on the future of Litecoin.
Hey. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Miss Teen Crypto. I'm an 18-year-old cryptocurrency influencer, speaker, and educator based in New York City. Today, we are celebrating the 10-year anniversary of Litecoin with none other than Charlie Lee, the director of Litecoin Foundation and creator of Litecoin. Thank you so much for joining us today, Charlie.
Sure. I'm happy to be here.
Same here. This is a huge milestone, Litecoin turning 10 and having such strong technological support as well as community support with 10 years of no downtime. And my number one question is, how did you come to create Litecoin?
I've told this story like many times, right? Litecoin was created kind of as a fun side project, kind of just happened, wasn't really planned. Originally, there was a coin that I helped create with on the technical side of things called Fairbricks. And then that kind of failed. And then after that, I decided to kind of start over and create Litecoin, which is just based off of Bitcoin, very similar to Bitcoin, but kind of a lighter version of Bitcoin. And basically that just happened and that was it.
And for people that may be a little new to Litecoin, how does Litecoin compare to Bitcoin?
So the main difference is at the time when I created Litecoin is I wanted to create a coin that is mined using CPU versus at that time Bitcoin was mined using GPUs. And it was important that Litecoin miners did not compete with Bitcoin miners because you don't want the coin to be attacked by Bitcoin miners, and you don't want to like compete for hash rate. So Litecoin uses the script proof of work, which at that time was CPU mined, eventually became GPU mined when Bitcoin became ASIC, and then now ASICs are created for Litecoin also. So that's the main difference. Litecoin has 4 times as many coins, and block confirmations are 4 times faster. So transactions happen every 2.5 minutes as opposed to 10 minutes for Bitcoin.
Amazing. And how do you feel that Litecoin has been running since its Genesis block with no downtime?
It's honestly quite an amazing accomplishment.
Right.
Not many coins can claim this. Actually, I don't think any other coin can claim this, because you hear about all these other coins having trouble, being down for a certain amount of time, being attacked, having issues where blocks are taking forever. So one of the reasons why Litecoin has done so well is because what I set out to do was to keep it as close to Bitcoin as possible and only change a few aspects of it and not kind of try to do something crazy. And that has worked really well over the past 10 years.
Yeah, totally. And do you think that using crypto as a store of value and medium of exchange will be the strongest use case for crypto? Because, for example, Bitcoin is digital gold, Litecoin can be looked at as digital silver.
Yeah, I think that the main kind of innovation that blockchain provided, I think the killer app is definitely being money. The reason is because blockchains are inefficient by design. So you really need a reason for this inefficiency, right? It's a lot easier to have like a central database doing stuff. So one example I like to give is, for example, Ethereum. Like Ethereum can do a lot of things, but it's inefficient to use a blockchain. And you ask yourself, is there a reason why you need a blockchain for something like this? If you have like more centralized blockchains that work a lot better, and a lot of people are comfortable trusting entities like Google or Facebook or Amazon to host these blockchains. So for example, Google had like a smart contract system that basically did what Ethereum did, but is 10 times, 100 times cheaper and more efficient, more faster. People would be fine using that for things like NFTs or other things, because they trust Google, and there's no, for most use cases, there's really no need for for the decentralization aspect of blockchains. So I do think that money is probably the strongest and best use case for crypto, and it's what it's designed for.
That's really awesome. I really love your point as it being, money, store of value. And I know that Litecoin is a great coin using for payments. And what do you think about Litecoin starting to be accepted on applications such as PayPal and Venmo?
I think it's huge. Like when PayPal announced the support for Litecoin, it's a huge next step to Litecoin being used like everywhere, right? So PayPal has hundreds of millions of users and merchants, and having the ability for merchants to easily accept Bitcoin, Litecoin, Ethereum, and Bitcoin Cash using PayPal is huge. It's a huge next step. So I'm very excited for that, to see that happen.
Do you think this brought a lot of adoption to Litecoin, PayPal, and Venmo?
Yeah, so I mean, right now, a lot of adoption comes from just people speculating, right? Using Bitcoin, Litecoin as it's a new asset class, right? So PayPal supporting Litecoin lets people on PayPal to easily buy Litecoin, and also on Venmo now. Right? So I'm looking forward to them opening up where people can actually withdraw their coins, Bitcoin, Litecoin, to their own wallet. So it's not just stuck in the PayPal ecosystem. But that, even without that, like Robinhood started with letting people just buy and sell Bitcoin, Litecoin, other coins, and that's huge to just open this asset class up to more users, right? And that's similarly like the ETF that's happening right now. Lets a lot more people invest in this new asset class, and that's the start, right? First, you have to let people be able to invest and hold Bitcoin and Litecoin, and then the next step is actually people actually spending and using it as real money.
Exactly. I love how you brought up spending your Litecoin, and I think that's a really important point. And what do you before we get to spending Litecoin, what do you think the selection process is, with applications such as PayPal and Venmo, and how Litecoin is always fit to be spendable? For example, another platform that added Litecoin was BitPay, and you can spend it at places like Paxson, which is a very popular Gen Z retailer. So what do you think the selection process is for these applications?
Well, I think like Litecoin being 10 years old is a huge deal, right? It's one of the OG cryptos, and a lot of people consider it to be like a blue chip cryptocurrency. The fact that it's been around for so long, it's lived through multiple cycles of bull markets and bear markets, right? The first big one, I remember when Litecoin hit $50, it shot up from like $10 to $50 in like a day. And then that was like the peak of that bull market, and eventually crashed back down to $2. And then also like 4 years ago, we saw it hit 400 or 360, and then it crashed back down to 20. It's gone through a lot and survived multiple bull bear market cycles. And like you said, there hasn't been any downtime. So the Litecoin network has worked flawlessly, and that's important for money, right? If you're using it as money, you don't want the network, you don't want people to be experimenting on it and for things to happen and for the network to be down. And that's just unacceptable, right? For a money payment network. So because of that, companies like PayPal, BitPay trust Litecoin enough to support it. And these days, whenever you turn on CNBC, when they're talking about Bitcoin or crypto in general, they'll show like the Litecoin ticker, which is very cool.
Yes, and I love how it's the functionality that's important. It's the technological support, like we mentioned before, that's so important. And it's the trust we have in Litecoin. A very scary thought is if all of a sudden we go to make a payment and it doesn't go through, something happens. And Litecoin, like you said, is trustworthy. And now people are spending it through BitPay, and now you guys also have the Litecoin card. People always ask, how can you spend Litecoin in the real world? Like, I could just go up to a cash register and use it. How did you guys develop the idea of the Litecoin card, and why do you think this is significant?
Sure. Before I mention that, I also want to add that one of the other reasons why people trust Litecoin as much is that the network has not been successfully attacked. Right? So
Yeah.
A lot of coins have been 50% attacked or hacked in certain ways, but Litecoin hasn't because the hash rate is really strong.
Yes, for sure.
Excuse me. Give me 1 second.
No problem. Charlie Lee, we'll be right back. I hope you guys are enjoying the interview so far. Litecoin is such an amazing innovation, and I'm so happy to be here conducting this interview. If you guys want to check out Litecoin, go on Twitter. Feel free to check out Litecoin Foundation and at Litecoin and give it a follow for some future updates on Litecoin and what they're up to. Charlie Lee is back.
Sorry about that.
No problem.
So what were we talking about? So about Litecoin card, right? So
yes, Litecoin card.
This has been something that the community has been asking for many years. So the ability to easily pay with Litecoin. So I see the Litecoin card, the Visa card, as a kind of a stepping block to actual merchants accepting Litecoin directly, right? So with a Litecoin card, you're holding Litecoin in an account. Whenever you swipe the card, the Litecoins get converted on the fly to US dollar or whatever fiat currency you're using, and then the merchant is getting the fiat currency. So that works really well for people who want to spend Litecoin. But there is some conversion costs, and there's some kind of bumps along the way to do that, right? But this is a good stepping stone to the next step, which is for merchants to directly sell Litecoin. But right now, it's cool that you can basically pay with Litecoin anywhere where Visa is accepted.
Exactly. And that's almost all around the world. We have a lot of Visa merchants, and you're able to buy whatever you want with it. And the fact that Litecoin really has taken that step is really a great initiative, because I know a lot of people are asking, how do I spend my Litecoin? Can I just go into a store and tap and pay? Now you can. I really love that. And I know before we were talking about decentralization, a little bit of self-custody we dabbled into, especially because we were talking about PayPal and Venmo, and how, yes, you can buy Litecoin on there, but you cannot withdraw it and hold it in your own custody. How important is decentralization to you?
As I mentioned, I think decentralization is extremely important, right? So the whole point of blockchain is decentralization. Like if you didn't care about decentralization, you don't need to use an inefficient kind of database like the blockchain. So, and decentralization is very important for money. I think you want to have control of your money, just like how internet was important for kind of decentralization of information. I think blockchain is important for decentralization of money. So throughout our history, other than like something like gold, money has always been controlled by governments, right? So I always thought that gold is like the best form of money before I came across Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. And
wow.
I saw Bitcoin as a better form of gold, right? It's very similar to gold, but better because you can transmit it electronically. There's no weight, there's no physical aspect of it, so there's no storage cost. So it's definitely a better form of money, the best form of money we've ever seen.
I love that. And how do you think the community plays a role in, I guess, carrying crypto and supporting cryptocurrencies like Litecoin and carrying on this decentralization aspect?
In one sense, kind of, it's silly to have a community. Kind of right now, there's no community supporting the U.S. dollar, for example, right?
Yeah.
So a community around a currency is kind of weird, but I consider like Bitcoin and Litecoin to be like a startup currency, right? It's kind of trying to become a real currency, real money. So for that to succeed, you really need people supporting it, right? You need people to spend it, to use it, to hold it, and to go out there and push for adoption. Where without the Litecoin community out there, like talking to merchants and talking to payment processors and demanding, or not demanding, but asking payment processors and merchants to support Litecoin, we wouldn't be where we are here today, right? So I think the community is awesome, and it's really productive and very good for a coin like Litecoin, for it to succeed. We really need a strong community out there pushing for it.
Yes, pushing for it, but nicely pushing for it. And I really love that the community has done a lot, especially organizations like Litecoin Foundation, and just really pushing people to go to events like Litecoin Summit, which is an amazing community event by Litecoin. And speaking of Litecoin and initiatives and new things coming, I know there's a very large upgrade coming to Litecoin soon, known as MWEB. And for everyone who doesn't know, and for you to give, I guess, a light summary, what is MWEB?
Yeah, so MWEB stands for Mimblewimble Extension Block. What it is extension block is kind of like a side chain that is attached to the main chain. So miners will mine both the main Litecoin block and an MWEB extension block at the same time. So about every 2.5 minutes, both of those blocks will be mined. What MWEB is it uses Mimblewimble technology, which is something that gives Litecoin more fungibility and more privacy. So the most important thing is that the amount of the transacting amount is hidden. So when you're sending coins to the recipient, only you and the recipient see how many coins you sent them, and no one else could actually see the actual amount. But they can use cryptography to ensure that you sent an amount and you didn't actually create Litecoins out of thin air. So this is a technology called confidential transactions, which I think is really important for money, right? So when you're spending Litecoins or Bitcoin, everyone sees how many coins you actually sent. So they can, and then looking at history, they can sort of try to figure out how many coins you have in your wallet, right? Just using some blockchain analysis. And that's not a very good property of money. And the property that we're trying to solve is fungibility, right? The fungibility of money means that every Bitcoin, every Litecoin you use is indistinguishable from every other Litecoin. So that's a property that currently exists for fiat currencies, right? If in your wallet you have multiple $20 bills, it doesn't matter which one you use. It's treated exactly the same. It's a $20 bill. There's no history attached to it. Even though there's like a serial number on the $20 bill, it doesn't really matter. It's fungible, right? But that's not the case with Litecoin today. When I send Litecoin to buy coffee, for example, the merchant would be able to see how many Litecoins I have in my wallet if they really want to, and that's not good. Financial privacy is really important, so we're trying to solve that with MWEB. And the idea is that once you move money into the MWEB extension block, all the transaction uses confidential transaction and Mimblewimble. And the cool thing about MWEB and Mimblewimble is that it actually scales even better than Bitcoin and Litecoin main chain, because of properties and some cryptographies we're using with Mimblewimble. So it's a very good solution to solve fungibility and privacy. And we're kind of sort of experimenting with that using extension blocks. So it'll be very exciting to see when that happens and how people use it.
Yes, and I know it's not going to be too complicated to, enable Mimblewimble. It might just be a click of a button, right? Or is there going to be separate applications to use this?
Well, I wouldn't say it's not too complicated. First of all, we're going to release the code later this year.
Awesome.
And then miners need to activate it, right? So it'll take some time for miners to activate it. Once it's activated, then Mimblewimble extension block would run side by side with the main chain. But you also need to update wallets to support it, right? So it's a optional soft fork, so no one has to update. So exchanges, for example, will likely not support the extension block, and that's fine. So if you have coins in MWEB and you want to send to the exchange, you just peg out and send coins back to the main chain. And you can do it directly to an exchange wallet. So MWEB would have a separate addresses, just like SegWit. And wallets will start supporting it, so you can peg in your coins into MWEB. And if merchants support receiving MWEB coins, then you can transact with them directly. So it'll take like a few years before this really gets adopted, but it's going to be exciting.
For sure, it's going to be exciting. You guys it's been 10 years of Litecoin, nonstop innovation. It's not like, you released Litecoin and it was just there doing its own thing. You guys are constantly, you and your developers are constantly working on this and working to improve Litecoin and make it better store of value and better money for people to use in the real world. And now you guys are also protecting privacy, which is amazing, because yes, we need transparency, but we also need that anonymity factor when it's necessary, right? And I think that adding fungibility is very important. So how do you think that MWEB will impact Litecoin adoption?
We'll see. I mean, it's definitely a big change, right? So over the past 10 years, Litecoin has kind of stuck to with Bitcoin for pretty much everything. Even though like SegWit activated on Litecoin first, it was developed for Bitcoin, right? So MWEB is like a first step away from something that's done on Bitcoin. So I think it's really important. I think fungibility is really important. That's why we're willing to take this step for doing something different than Bitcoin. And it's definitely a little bit risky, right? Something different. So we have to take it slow. For example, the code is getting audited. We actually just received the report. Things are going really well. It did find some issues that we're fixing, but it's important to take this slow and make sure everything is good. So I forgot what your actual question was.
How do you think that MWEB will impact Litecoin adoption?
Yeah, so I think I'd like to see after it's live, more and more people use it. It's important I think financial privacy is extremely important, and people will realize that they would want to keep their coins kind of private, the amount of coins they have to themselves, right? So I think it's gonna be huge. I think it's gonna be very important just to have something that is fungible, a better form of money, actually. So fungibility is one of the properties of good sound money that is missing in Bitcoin and Litecoin. I would say it's like the only thing that is missing from Bitcoin and Litecoin being like the best form of money possible. So adding that and making Litecoin even better money than before, I think is huge.
Absolutely. Totally agreed. And I'm so happy we got to do this and hear more of your perspective. Litecoin turning 10 is a huge turning point in history overall. I mean, you guys have been putting out nothing but perfection. You released the Litecoin code. It's been perfect as of right now, 10 years of no downtime. You guys have been working tirelessly on MWEB and now another update called OmniLite, which I know I'm not sure we could jump too much into right now with the time we have left. But I know that this is huge. And how do you feel about the next 10 years of Litecoin? Where do you see this going?
Yeah, I mean, I never expected Litecoin to be where it is here today, right? So when I launched it was for fun, didn't expect too much of it. The fact that it's survived for 10 years and it is where it is now today, it's kind of mind-boggling, right? So to even think about what would happen the next 10 years, it's really hard to say. I'm kind of taking it one step at a time. The next thing is MWEB, which we're fully focused on to make sure that launch is successful. And then after that, who knows, right? So eventually the end goal is for crypto to be used as money, right? We're starting to see that in El Salvador, where Bitcoin is legal tender and merchants and users actually using Bitcoin in their daily lives. I think that's going to happen more and more in more countries, and that's the end goal. right? Where people would store their money in crypto because it's just a better form of money. It's governments can't just print more out of thin air, and people would just use it as real money. And I think in 10 years, I'd see people using cryptocurrencies as money without even realizing what's kind of behind everything. Like right now, when you're spending crypto, you have to. It's not simple, right? You have to know what you're doing to safely store it and to spend it. But then over the next 10 years, I see it being built out where people were actually using crypto without even realizing what's going on behind the scene.
That's great. That's something I do bring up to people all the time, is that eventually we're going to be using crypto without even knowing we're using crypto. People might get the Litecoin card and not even realize it's a Litecoin card. They just know it's something they could use, something they could spend.
Yep. It's just money, right?
Exactly. It's just technology. A lot of people don't know the technology with tap and pay. They use tap and pay there every day, but they don't know how the actual technology works behind, like leaving your card going to the merchant. But we still use it. We still know it works. And Litecoin, we know it works. We trust Litecoin. 10 years of no downtime, low fees, and very fast transaction times. Is this something that's very important to you as well, the fast transaction times?
Yeah. So one of the reasons why I wanted to create a coin with faster transaction times is because using Bitcoin like in person at that time was not easy, right? So waiting 10 minutes for a block. Sometimes blocks are slower and it takes like half an hour or even an hour for blocks, and that's kind of unacceptable when you're doing like in-person transactions.
Yes.
So Litecoin's 2.5 minutes is much better, but still not as quick as something, for example, like Lightning Network, right? So it's a good step towards just faster payments, but we definitely need more things like Lightning Network to improve the speed and also the throughput.
Yes, in real life transactions. So exciting. Litecoin is reaching new heights of adoption. I see more and more wallets. The statistics on Litecoin are insane. The amount of transactions now, the amount of wallets being open. A lot more people are opening their eyes to Litecoin, and the amount I guess the amount of history it has and the amount of history it's going to make. And I just love that you guys work tirelessly on improving this. And it's, again, not just where it started, it's progressing in so many different ways, whether that's be fungibility, privacy, potential NFTs and marketplaces. Truly amazing. And I really have so much respect for you and what you do. And I just thank you so much for joining us today. And I really wish we had more time to chat, and maybe we could have a longer chat one day and have more of a deep dive. Is there anything that you feel is very important? One thing that you really want people to know watching this and know about Litecoin and what you guys are doing?
Just something just I thought of is just recently, right? Someone sent hundreds of millions of dollars worth of Litecoin on the Litecoin network and paid like pennies in fees, right? And the reason why they're able to do that is because Litecoin is secure, right? It's safe. They can send that money without it getting hacked, and it's just a strong kind of coin that or payment network that lets you move money, right? And in the end, that's the most important thing about what we're building here is just something that lets you transfer value, right, for efficiently, quickly, and cheaply, and that's what Litecoin does. So I'm very proud of what Litecoin has achieved over the past 10 years.
As you should be. Thank you so much, Charlie. Your insights are honestly amazing, and it was so great talking to you today. I just have one more thing to say. I hope everybody has a great day. Charlie, thank you so much. And